authentic as I was in those videos, so with this idea in mind, I confidently strode right over to my laptop. This idea in mind, I confidently strode right up. I promise that one day I'll talk about something other than a sports game. One day, but not today.
Can't stop me. Don't even try. I'm on fire.
Can't stop me now, don't even try because I'm on fire. That beat will bring me, I think I feel the upright. Are you ready now? Are you ready? Hey, batter, hey, batter, hey, batter. Wings! I'm ready to go.
So if you're not completely keyed into this ongoing series where I feed into my increasingly frayed nostalgia via games from my childhood or just look at weird stuff, I've discussed a number of sports games that I played during that childhood. But it was during these two specific videos that I made an allusion to yet another sports game favorite of mine from that time. Considering that we're at the start, I mean in the middle of, at the tail end of this year's Major League Baseball season, and we're in the middle of football season, I figured now's the best time to talk about MLB Power Pros. I mentioned in the Strikers video that I had gotten 2 games from my grandpappy for my 12th birthday, and MLB Power Pros was not only the other gift in this scenario, it was the one I originally asked for. Yep, Strikers Charge was just a bonus. This was the real gem. I'd become aware of its existence thanks to Sports Illustrated for Kids running this sick advert for the title, and I loved how it stood out from every other baseball game from its time, even Mario Superstar Baseball. It also helped that I was playing League Baseball and our team name was the Reds, and I also had this refrigerator magnet for the Cincinnati Reds 2007 season that I would read over and over and over again every single day, even though it had been a whole year since that mediocre season, and I was only interested in the Reds at the time because Ken Griffey Jr. was on the team, and he had just hit 600 home runs, and this game would allow me to play as a little chibi version of him over a decade after he'd become the mascot for his own baseball games. I was a kid. I don't think I can explain it any better than that. And I put a lot of time into it. Oh boy, I had so much fun. But as per usual for this series, it's been a long time since I touched MLB Power Pros, and as per usual, I was curious to see how well it had held up after all this time, and as per usual, I wanted to figure out the going-ons of how it came to be, and maybe check out if there were any other games in the series that I'd missed. Like, come on, a game with this kind of style has got to have a wild story behind it. Wouldn't you agree? And looking into it, yeah, wild is one way to put it. If you want to call being part of what's one of the longest running and bestest-selling baseball video game series of all time wild, then yeah. Honestly, it sounds kind of mundane to me. I learned about this well after the fact and its time in the spotlight, but MLB Power Pros is, in fact, a stray entry in the best-selling baseball video game series of all time in Japan. That's where it originated and where most of its provenance lies. As of the beginning of this year, the Jikkyō Power Pro Yakyū series has passed the 25 million in lifetime sales mark and turned 30 later in the year, having started way back when on the Super Famicom and seeing new entries be released on almost every single home and handheld console since then, including the Dreamcast. And that prominence has not budged an inch. A few friends of mine recently took separate trips to Japan soon after the newest entry in the series had come out, and many of the game shops they visited had a special area just for that game, some of them even featuring a Shohei Ohtani cutout, as you do. The key difference, of course, is historically the Power Pro series, I'm just gonna say Power Pro, has used players, teams, and leagues from the Nippon Professional Baseball Organization. And what's likely the biggest factor to the series' success beyond its unique look is such. Baseball is Japan's most popular sport. Yes, the sport that's supposed to be, or had been at some point, considered America's pastime, way more popular in Japan. I checked out footage of an NPL game just to see how different it was to an MLB game, and
この回先頭松山ライトに上がった右中間へ入った松山が大谷を捉えました
well, you'll have trouble finding a baseball crowd that's louder than this one. Sounds like they're having fun though, but something curious I noticed in watching this is how suspiciously familiar those logos are. Then again, if the innumerable amount of high school teams in America blatantly using similar logos to professional teams hasn't caused a ruckus by now, why should it be a problem here?
Bro, what the hell is this shit? I've never heard of it. Who cares? What are these goofy-looking bobblehead-looking mofos? This isn't real baseball. I'm sticking with Meekr and MLB The Show.
Actually, they're based off of the gashapons and were intricately designed in order to appeal to the non-baseball playing crowd of its time.
You're intricately designed.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Fellas, relax. Sir, if you wanted to play a more accurate representation of the sport, why not try a game from the Professional Baseball Spirits spin-off series? It's relatively similar to Power Pros, but has actual human-like character models to go with it. Like MLB The Show, with a bit more style, and you can handle a bit more style, can't you? And you seem like the kind of guy who would go nuts learning about the series in depth, so how about the Power Pro Kun Pocket games? Plenty of weird stuff going on here that I'm sure you'd love to wrap your pretty little head around. You'll probably need to translate them all by your lonesome, but looks like a fun time to me.
Wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. I feel much more comfortable with this series now.
Alright, you scams, run along now. Kids these days. To be honest though, I'm not really sure why the characters look that way. Actually, I'm not entirely sure how the series got its start at all. Well, obviously Konami were responsible for it, and these folk are no stranger to sports games, but as for what inspired its development, no concrete details that I could find. Or at least, concrete details in my native tongue. Gleaming the credits for the first entry on Moby Games, a lot of these folk had previously worked on similarly cutesy titles like the Tiny Toon 16-bit games and Twinbee, but they're also credited on some of Hideo Kojima's early titles, including Snatcher, and pointedly the weird RPG version of that game that features deformed versions of the original game's characters, SD Snatcher. Perhaps the idea was to make a baseball game that would stand out from all of the other baseball games released in Japan during this time that also had deformed characters of the sort. Maybe make them even cuter and even more exaggerated, almost to the point of parody. I can't testify as to whether or not that is the case, but whatever the case may be, there's about 1,000 of these games, not including those spin-off series I mentioned earlier, so it's safe to say that it worked out pretty dang well for them. Wouldn't it be funny if I had found something with this very insight after having already recorded all of this audio? Like, gut-bustingly hilarious that as I was editing this video, this long video, I found a Denfaminiko Gamer article from 2017 conveniently linked on the series Wikipedia page that conveniently interviews two developers from Konami who have been with Power Pros since the beginning and provides the exact insight I was looking for. Well, I did say that I couldn't find any information in my native tongue. So on the one hand, fuck me. On the other hand, yay, developer insight. On the other hand, Google Translate sucks. On the other hand, fuck me. There's not a terrible amount here to go through, but take this information however you please since it's based off a potentially inaccurate translation. But I was a bit surprised how, well, kinda close I was in my little assumption regarding the game's creation. So Power Pros came about when, according to the main programmer in this scenario who had worked on the game, Konami told them and his team to make a baseball game for the Super Famicom. And they entrusted him primarily because he had already helped the company with 2 other baseball games that are way more obscure than this information. And they actually were trying to take a more realistic approach with the gameplay than in previous baseball games, and created the Power Pros style that you see here to contrast against that.
And also kind of ripping off Hakunetsu Pro Yakyū Gamba League, aka Extra Innings, but you didn't hear that from me.
They did consider making better proportioned models, but decided against it as it was easier to develop around and, well, just looked funnier. Again, not a whole lot of insight. I kind of didn't think there was, but it's something. So with all that said, I'm more interested in figuring out how in the hell we Americans received an MLB entry in the series. It did make its way to our shores a couple years before MLB Power Pros, by way of its appearance in the Game Boy Advance launch title Konami Crazy Racers, but as for actual games, not a one. The press coverage didn't give me a whole lot to go off of, but one interesting element that you can gather right away, Take-Two were taking care of the publishing side of things. Ooh, that sounds like a threat to me. And pulling on that thread led me to discover that they had snagged an exclusive agreement from the MLB a few years prior. An agreement that stopped any other third-party companies from releasing their own MLB licensed titles. At least, not without their involvement. For as familiar as that may sound, we're gonna have to put a pin in that, except to say that it looks like that the agreement only applied to baseball games released in the US. Konami still handled the publishing of the game in Japan. Hell, by that point, they had established a dev team dedicated to Power Pros, also known as Power Pro Productions, and what I also discovered is that this isn't even the first game in the Power Pro series with the MLB branding. Just a year before, they put out Jikkyō Powerful Pro Major League onto the PS2 and GameCube. And what we received as MLB Power Pros is a localization of the sequel to that game, Jikkyō Powerful Pro Major League 2. Konami handled that localization themselves too, and its official announcement arrived in the middle of baseball season 2007, before being released in the States 2 months later during the postseason. Japan got it later. A lot of build-up for a dumb baseball game, huh? Well, there's only one way to find out how this thing works, so let's pop the baseball game into the doohickey and get me a hammer. I mean a homer. I said homer, no, put it away. We will be playing the Wii version of MLB Power Pros, and much like how we approached Big Hurt Baseball, let's start by going through the basics of an MLB Power Pros baseball match to get a feeling for those gameplay mechanics. I'm sure all of you know how baseball itself works by now. After all, each and every one of us here grew up playing backyard baseball and Big Hurt Baseball just like I did. And if you say you didn't, you're a liar. For this journey, I will be using the classic controller setup as... God, after the Strikers debacle, I need a break from these other two. Getting into a match, at first glance, Power Pros doesn't seem to be doing anything special. When pitching, you choose a pitch from the list of pitches that your pitcher can throw and move the cursor around the strike zone to the position that you want that pitch to go to. When batting, you can move the cursor around in that strike zone to where you think the ball is going to go, and you can swing the bat as it approaches the plate. And when fielding, you get to control the player and do the fielding, all of which is performed by using the control stick and buttons. The players also have specialized stats and strengths that make them suited for specific positions, kind of like how backyard baseball worked, and they all have unique visual quirks and animations for pitching and batting, just like backyard baseball. And they have a stamina mechanic that changes depending on how well they're doing, just like backyard okay, yes, there's a lot of similarities to backyard baseball. I doubt that it was a point of inspiration for Power Pros, since it came well after that series did, but I think that Pablo would fit in here perfectly. I guess we'll see how they stack up against each other whenever that revival comes out. Didn't see that one coming. Unlike using the simple mouse controls to point and click in the batter's box though, Power Pro's cursor is one-to-one with the left analog control stick. So when pitching or batting, you need to move that stick to where you want the pitch or bat to go and keep it positioned there until the action's completed, or else the cursor will return to its starting position. It's a notch trickier than just a simple mouse click or button press. Additionally, when pitching, you can also mash the wind-up button during the wind-up to increase the speed of the pitch, and there's even an expert mode that allows the player to have even greater control over the timing and speed of the pitch, but sticking with the standard one-press move stick around method is totally viable. Batting, meanwhile, has two modes, light swing or power swing, but either mode necessitates having the ball land in the bat's sweet spot in order for the hit to be more effective, and timing it right just for a hit to land in general. Fielding works about the same as Meekr did, where the game auto-chooses the player that the struck ball is closest to following a hit, which can be changed manually, and the face buttons correspond to the base that the player with said ball will throw to. Then you have the player stats, which consists of the sweet spot size, power of the swing, hit trajectory of the swing, speed of the player, arm strength of the player, fielding of the player, error resistance of the player, best position to place the player of the player, all of which get a ranking from A to G. Like, you can't just put a pitcher in the outfield or in the catcher's box like you could do in back fart piss ball. If you do, they will cry. As for the aforementioned stamina mechanic, that's also known as the player's condition. It consists of 5 different levels that vary in each player from game to game and is represented by this cute little emoticon and affects how accurate a pitch is or how large the bat's sweet spot is. The exhibition mode also has an exclusive feature called the Spirit System, where players will get a bonus status effect depending on how well they're doing. Like, if they're on a roll, they'll just go hopping mad, and if they're totally bombing, they will cry. Oh yeah, and if you leave the pitcher on the mound for longer than necessary, they will just cry. They will die. After getting reacquainted with this setup and getting back into the swing of things, I took a hammer to my leg and checked out the first game in the series to see how the gameplay had evolved from its roots. And boy and howdy, this game hurt me a lot more than any old hammer incident could. It is still an arcadey type baseball game and seems simpler to control too, since the D-pad is an analog, but there's another wrinkle to that. The cursor is now completely invisible during pitching, forcing players to fine-tune the accuracy of those pitches to a science. Batting is a little bit more lenient in that regard, but pitches also come in far quicker than any of the ones thrown in MLB Power Pros, forcing the player to react in like half a second while also paying attention to where the catcher's mitt is positioned up here in this area to have a vague idea as to where the pitch is going to land in the first place. Fielding mostly works the same as well, but now there aren't any indicators for where fly balls are going to land, forcing the player to be even more accurate with positioning their outfielders and the like. I wasn't 100% sure if there were any options in this first entry to alter these settings, but 13 years in, that's no longer an issue as the series has refined its gameplay to an incredible amount. Now we have adjustable difficulty options and the marker, and they have gotten completely rid of the catcher's cam. But even with that in mind, if you're more used to how an MLB The Show type or a Big Hurt type game plays, I'm sorry, that's honestly the only other MLB game I've played, I'm gonna keep bringing it up. It sounds a little bit more complex, but once you do make that adjustment, this is where MLB Power Pros appeal comes through. I really appreciated that extra bit of skill involved with spacking those larger hits or throwing those tighter pitches. The batting in particular feels so hefty and weighty, amplified by that back crack sound that's so extra sharp. It's like cut glass or broken bat, splinter sharp. Like, sometimes I just get on a hot streak when playing, like go whack, 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 and I feel so bad for the opposing team. I just start making lighter hits or just completely whiffing on pitches just so it's not a complete wash. They've also nailed the ball physics by this point, so what's more likely to happen is the ball takes off in a number of weird directions, especially when weather is factored in. The best aspect altogether, though, is how each game is paced very fast and very efficiently. The box blurb might be a little bit eager in stating it's baseball for all ages, because again, the controls will take a bit to get used to, but it's definitely easy enough for most folks interested to pick up and get right into a game right away without thinking too much about the inner workings. I actually brought this game over to my old friend's house to play it with them, alongside Mario Strikers Charged, and once they understood the basics, they seemed to have fun with it. They did have Wii Sports Baseball and the Wii version of The Bigs to prepare them for it though, and that subsequently led them to shake the Wii remote during base running when motion controls are not involved here in any way whatsoever. At least not in this mode. Bottom line, the game still plays incredibly well, and it's easy to see why it's remained so popular in Japan all these years. Which brings us to the presentation. This gashapon bobblehead Rayman-esque style they've got for these characters is, admittedly, an odd choice. They've got no mouth, no ears, no nose, spear hands. God, how do they live through life? But it's what they do with these built-in limitations that make them so appealing in my eyes. The facial expressions, the reactions to certain pitches or bats, the camera switching perspective when you get a no-doubt home run down the foul line, the aforementioned crying pitchers, the interface with its rounded outlines and bold text, the replay system. Oh yeah, they've got one here too. I'm still a sucker for that shit. It's all so bright and animated and fun. Any kid would love looking at this. Although, outside of that, the game is not as impressive as I thought. It's got the surefire signs of a 6th generation game hastily brought over into the Wii generation with its 4:3 ratio, plain looking stadiums, and crappy looking audiences. Elsewhere, the sound design is, again, generally fine. I have praised those sound effects already, and the music is suitable, if a little repetitive. There's just one teensy tiny problem that brings it down just a teensy tiny bit, labeled bad soundbite commentary.
Line drive up the middle between second and shortstop. Hit to center field. Hatterberg gets a base hit to center field. The Reds might just get the first run of the game here. Our next batter, Kennedy. Strike. Catcher throws to second. Out. 2 away.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Merluzzi, Merloopy, McClunky. And look, I don't mind the awkward soundbite editing. You'll find that in almost every sports game when it comes to live commentary.
And here's the first pitch. In there for strike 1, 0-1.
And that's a sign of a veteran pitcher getting ahead early in the count.
But this guy sounds like he's trying way too hard to match the energy of the commentators from the previous Power Pro games, i.e. the energy of Japanese baseball commentators. And that is very difficult for an outsider to get right.
He smacks the first pitch right between second base and shortstop. Hit to center field. Ross gets a base hit to center field. The go-ahead runner is on with no outs.
And he does not get it right. I did tolerate him enough as a kid, so I thought I'd be okay with his voice as an adult, maybe even get a bit of nostalgia for it.
There it goes, a home run! 4-0. The Reds extend their lead to 4.
And one game of baseball proved me otherwise. I muted his ass forever. I can't believe the voice of Zero from Mega Man X7 could let us down like this.
This has become a real pain. I want a full explanation when this is all over.
There's not much more to complain about beyond that, though. We've got an absolutely freaking solid center for this baseball title, so now it's time to see how this baseball center gets utilized. Okay, looks like we've got another season mode to tackle, so let's start off there and get my beloved Reds in those playoffs again. I doubt we'll run into any of the issues we did attempting that last time, but never say never. After choosing our difficulty option, we get to choose from either an MLB team or an expansion team. Interesting. But as you can tell from my control methods, I am a simple man, so we are sticking with the simple standards. Next up, I get to choose my team, and whilst I went over to those silly Reds, I noticed the arrange team option blanked out, not selectable, and yet beckoning me, tempting me, seducing me. I do recall seeing that as its own mode, but I'm simple and I like my team simple. But when we're asked if we want to customize the MLB leagues, I finally cave in. Let's just throw the game a bone, or more accurately, throw the game a slow ball. I'm gonna put the Cincinnati Reds in the AL West where they clearly belong. Maybe that'll set them straight. And last but not least, the game asks us to adjust any of the options for the game or the season in its entirety, as well as if we want to bring over in any character created players or use the dream draft to bring over any of the players to our team, and mommy, I'm scared. That's a lot of options to choose from right away, and we've not even gotten into the mode in question. And that overwhelming feeling continues as we get into the dialogue-heavy introduction, where you are placed in the role of your selected team's new manager, and have a cute little assistant giving you all sorts of baseball advice. Your primary goal is to ensure the team's performance remains consistent during your decade-long tenure, as well as winning the World Series in the process, but you'll also be managing each player's individual practice routine, purchasing new equipment for them to work with and increase their stat boosts even further, hitting challenge goals to acquire points, grabbing newbies from the AAA and minor league sector, keeping an eye on the free agency timer for certain players and acquiring some for yourself, renewing contracts for players so they don't go into free agency, initiating, accepting, and rejecting trades, handling the fucking finances, trying to figure out why the finances are so low month to month, restarting the game after it soft locks when you try to access the finances, and to be fair, this isn't all that different from your regular franchise or season mode in other sports games, but for someone who has, again, only played 2 baseball video games in their life, it's a bit much. This here is a true simulation through and through. And I did notice these options as a youngin', but I think I skipped most of them because I just wanted to get to the games. And to the game's credit, that's totally viable. You can leave the player's practice status alone and they'll just work on their least developed abilities, and to hell with new players or financial stability. I can keep everyone around if I want to. But seriously, for as staggering and daunting as all these options seem to be, it is an absolute dream for anyone who loves customizing their teams or players or stats to the nth degree, and a really cool way to learn about how the MLB generally works during not just the season, but during an entire calendar year. We'd be here all day if I had to go in depth on every single detail in this mode, so let's cut to the cork of my experience with this Oddball Red season. Now, I know I did praise the boldness of this interface earlier, but I'm not too keen on how this menu is organized, and I had trouble figuring out how to interact with these options once I found what I was looking for. Like going back to the practice routine, for example, all the players are in the automatic section by default, and to move them around you have to choose the player or multiple players, back out of the menu, go to the routine you want to focus them on, and then put them in there. And you can even add them together as a practice group if you want a more efficient practice method for them to go through. It's clunky. It's clunky and confusing. Those misgivings aside, I started the season with playing the games, just going through each and every game as much as I could, controlling every single player, all the decisions involved, up to me. The problem is the mode expects you to go through an entire 162 game season 10 times over. No shortened 28 game option like with our Big Hurt friend, a whole last season for 10 years. It's a good thing the matches themselves last only half an hour, right? So if we just calculate how long it would take to play through every single matchup during this entire span if we go through the games normally, it's just a minimum of 800 hours that we'll have to sink in. For as long as this video is, I did not spend all that time going through this crap. I enabled the super speed up option, which lets you speedrun games or even skip days or weeks or months entirely, all while the AI handles the complicated stuff. A true simulation run for the true simulation aficionados. It's time to sit back and let the money roll in. Oh. Reminder that the most important thing with being a manager is watching out for those funds. And what I noticed was that despite winning a lot of these games, my Reds was losing dough. These players' salaries and other expenses don't come cheap, so what is the most reasonable Reds manager there has ever been to do in a situation like this? Let go of these cash cows and bring in the AAA dunces. Yeah, I know I went back on what I said, but I'm feeling pretty confident about how this season is going. We go into the World Series, baby! Oh, that was shit. Better luck next time, fellas. Maybe we needed even fresher blood than the likes of Norris Hopper, whoever that is. But how exactly could we do that? This is what sets Power Pros apart from its ilk. Success Mode takes the baseball simulation gameplay we have seen from this game so far and mixes it with a big text-based visual novel-esque, RPG-esque, Tamagotchi-esque player building sim. You start by choosing from the most basic of basic character models, then you give them a name and preferred position, and then get to put their sorry asses through the trials and tribulations of hardcore baseball training, as well as whatever goes on in their day-to-day lives.
Bro, isn't this just a create a player mode with some more sim elements in it? Like MLB The Show had something like this last year. You're not really selling this on me, bro.
You're from last year! Also, not quite. This has been a part of the Power Pros series since the 3rd entry, and it has an actual story framed around all the strength training and baseball playing. Those Pocket Pro, Power Pro spin-offs in particular seem to be focused on variations of the success mode, and some of these descriptions make it sound like they're having a grand old time. But if you want to be super pedantic and super annoying, you could dismiss this entirely and just call it a story mode. And my response to that would be, how often have sports games featured story modes that weren't just a bunch of glorified matches? We've definitely seen some from the big shots in recent times, but they definitely weren't common in the mid-2000s, let alone the mid-90s. There's some very fascinating history we've got here before we've even engaged with the mode. So it must have been very enticing for young me too, right? Not really. I made one attempt, found the constant stream of text very boring, bumbled my dumbass through all of the other gameplay functions, ended up getting a game over, and never tried it again. I had yet to be exposed to the likes of Trauma Team and Ace Attorney to get me more interested in the whole reading text as gameplay thing, and I wasn't big on the customization elements either. I was more interested in the baseball gameplay, and that took way too long for this mode to get to. However, I'm not a stupid kid anymore, so perhaps this stupid mode would be stupidly easier for me stupid to get into. Success mode revolves around the custom booblehead of your choice attending college at Powerful University, where they join up with the school's awful baseball team, the Powerful Tulips, and make something of themselves and the team within the next 3 years while trying to get a shot in the majors in the process. These sequences play out on a week-to-week basis, and a first-time playthrough will see plenty of that text as the mode explains its mechanics and introduces its characters. Kinda similar to what Season Mode was doing, but at least there's more than 2 characters talking to each other this time, and more color to the dialogue. As for those characters, we have our main guy's best friend, Marvin, who will act as a foil to a lot of their actions over the course of these 3 years, and has been around in multiple variations of this mode since the 4th game. There's the blonde-haired rival, Alvin Lockhart, and the blonde-haired childhood friend, What's-Her-Face, and her father, who's the baseball scout responsible for our character's MLB fate, What's-His-Face, and the magenta-haired Magenta Manager, and a bunch of other people whose names I didn't commit to memory because I took one look at Alvin and realized that's all I ever needed. My god, that boy's styling. But our boy's not just here to socialize, they want to play some baseball. Except, as I stated, that's not going to happen for a while. The Tulips may suck ass, but they ain't desperate, and our guy still has to prove that he's worthy of a roster spot. So for now, training will have to do. There's a set number of exercises that they can perform to build up their stat numbers and get points to assign to those stats, which can be done manually if you want that extra layer of customization and the extra challenge of having to carefully consider which stats to build and abilities to obtain to maximize your performance, or automatically if you don't feel like handling that and you just want to focus on the story. The boob guy ain't a machine though. He's got his own vitality meter that needs to be maintained lest he increase his chances of getting injured during training. Fortunately, he can rest his little head at any time to regain some of that vitality, though not too much since that wastes a whole week. And those weeks could be better spent doing a whole bunch of other fun non-baseball related things. Studying for school so they don't flunk out, taking on a part-time job to earn some part-time money, using that part-time money at the shop to purchase items that will enhance their performance or other life aspects, hooking up with one of the cool girls they'll meet and going on dates, and so on and so forth. Sadly, Alvin's not an option for that matter. He's too busy being Alvin. Such is the sad fate for an Alvin. You'll also run into various scenarios that'll trigger at random following some predetermined choices or completely at random. Our guy might run into the Mafia if they're low on cash, or into the ghost of a popular player who's a walking harassment lawsuit if they had bought a bum bat earlier, or a kid in the park that they can play some baseball with who turns out to be another ghost in this world, or something along those lines. And I'm not entirely sure what triggered it, but this world really does like its spiritual elements. All these scenarios will have them gain or lose points depending on what happens there, and may also involve our guy making a critical decision that'll have you draw from a deck of fate cards. Yes, no, challenge, Marvin, which means getting Marvin to help out with whatever's happening. The choice is yours, and after making the choice, it'll replace the card with another randomly generated card. It's all about balancing your yeses and nos. You don't want to say yes too many times, because at some point you may have to say no, and vice versa. But you also may want to add some challenge to the situation so you can get some more points out of that, or just get Marvin to do it if you're lazy. And if that sounds like the kind of thing that'll keep you on your toes in this mode, more power to you. I don't care for it. I mean, I don't mind the random nature in general. It does add a lot of replay value, and can't exactly complain about the cards taking away your agency when so much random shit happens anyway. But in turn, this also has the capacity to block progress on specific routes if you don't have the card that you need for it. Sure, I wanted to have my guy polish the dirty baseballs, and I didn't want him to turn away his childhood friend after she asked to confide in them. And I think I did want to have them own up to using the team shirts to clean those dirty baseballs in another scenario where I was able to say yes to cleaning them, but I didn't have the right card at the time, so oh well. True, certain abilities can be acquired to increase the number of cards you can hold, or decrease it, and maybe this has been a mechanic in past games, but I would prefer it just not be there at all. This becomes less of an issue when you finally get to the baseball matchups, which are a big factor in determining your guys' chances of going all the way. The gameplay remains the same, though there are some restrictions to it now depending on your position. Your guy will either be pitching as reliever or in some random innings, or batting whenever it's their turn, with running and fielding controlled by the AI. Should our character become the Tulip's captain later on in life, then we're able to control every player in the roster from the 8th inning onwards. Part of me wished that I could just handle all that shit myself to show my character's true defensive prowess, or maybe just allow me to play a full game, but then I realized it's impossible for the mode to account for that, and having to play full games in this mode would absolutely kill the pacing, so yeah, this works out fine enough. Something funny I noticed though was how a lot of the success mode characters, as opposed to the MLB players, look weirdly awkward in 3D. Yeah, something about that poofy hairstyle, not great. Alvin made the transition pretty well though. Oh my god, that guy's my GOAT! Oh, and the only games our player participates in are the tournament ones, and most of them don't necessarily require a win to get them to the end. It helps though, and I fucking did that. But yes, the tulips can still fail miserably, and that wouldn't change the true bottom line for success mode, which is getting that scout level here high enough to allow the player to successfully get into the major league. If it isn't high enough, or they fail all their tests in school, or they get injured during tournament week, it's game over. Be sure to save a decent amount too. It's not always necessary, and the game kicks you out of the mode after saving. Just not really sure why, it's annoying. But it's a good habit to have in case you end up getting a game over. Who knows how much progress you'll lose. When you successfully get through the success mode, the game will finally let you fully customize your character's look, and then they can be yoinked from the AAA draft into season mode for their chosen team. Surely my trio of players here will bring the MLB to their knees and get the Reds their long-awaited World Series win. Oh. Well, better luck next time, fellas. So now we're left with the story part of this story mode. While the random scenarios can be pretty wacky, as I have proven, the overall story doesn't extend much beyond go through college and get into the majors. It's more focused on the characters and their side stories, which, despite me forgetting their names, are an enjoyable roundup of fools with their stories and personalities ranging from dad is a stingy idiot, to hot-headed teammate learns the power of teamwork, to musician teammate learns to abandon his musician dreams to become better at baseball. Not what I would have done, but here's my personal favorite. Art student girlfriend struggles with self-esteem and photography while being poor in spite of her father making literally the best camera in the universe. I'm just kidding. Becky, Rudy, Toby, Dad, Brad, Rex, Sarah. Gosh, just thinking about the amount of effort that went into this localization makes me sweat. And I can finally invoke some of that developer insight, as per this Inverse article, whose writer spoke to one of the former members of that localization team. Those fellas translated the dialogue from a document that had the original script listed without any context whatsoever. I don't know how common that was for localization back in the day, and yet it looks like it was pretty easy for them because you can tell they were having a lot of fun with the process. The dialogue's just got a funny, sarcastic vibe that fits the story and its universe really, really well. And I want to turn this video into any more of a this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, but it's funny stuff like having my guy take their childhood friend turned girlfriend to the movies, realizing they've got to take a piss halfway through the film, but she doesn't want them to leave, and then witnessing the result of the fake card that I chose in that moment, i.e. they scream at her, "I have to take a piss," whereupon she smacks the shit out of them, and the game rewards them with the bare hand catch ability. That motivated me to play through this mode 3 times straight. You just can't make this shit up. On the one hand, doing repeat playthroughs means seeing a lot of these same scenarios over and over and over again. On the other hand, the game will allow you to skip over a lot of the introductory and tutorialized stuff, and a bunch of the stuff that you can't skip over are short and quick anyway, so again, it works out well enough.
But what if you're not into the baseball gameplay, you just want to get to the part where you marry your pink waifu?
You're a pink wife! As I stated, those segments are relatively brief, and the game more or less decides the outcome of those matches based on a bunch of other factors that aren't up to your bobblehead's performance. Like the stat building and relationship building is all that really matters, as well as getting to see a cuss word in an E-rated game with no descriptors, and then getting to play against a bunch of MLB All-Stars should you win all the tournaments. They will make you cry though, like, oh my god, this is not fair. And additionally, why are you not hitting the ball to first place, you fucking idiot? This is one of the most unique features I have played through in any sports game, and I wish Konami had brought over some of the earlier games, or even some of the later games, just so we can see how insane this shit could get. Even if you don't care for the baseball stuff, MLB Power Pros is absolutely worth getting for this mode alone. I'm legitimately surprised just how much I got into this success mode, and I feel as though there are still a bounty of conversations and other plot points that I haven't even discovered or even triggered yet. I didn't even mention the whole gambling mechanic. No, not casino gambling, I mean buying a ticket from the shop or getting a ring that lets you gamble on receiving additional points towards your player's stats. So, I guess a baseball casino. We could end the discussion for this game now, but there are still some other modes we gotta look through. I probably should have mentioned this one from the start, but here's the dedicated practice mode. No, not the unwieldy one from season mode. This is its own beast that's dedicated to practicing the pitching and fielding and the batting and the base running, whatever you need to practice in order to get comfortable with the gameplay. And it's mighty extensive, so you have trouble with the controls or you want to test out the other control options, this is the best place to hone those skills. What's even more extensive is the arrange mode that I was so closely losing my composure over. And it's here that the customization options go into full overdrive. Create your dream team from scratch using one of the existing teams as a template, or just completely make one up on your own, down to the uniforms, the numbers, the voices. Put any player, anywhere, no strings attached. Do whatever your little baseball heart desires before it gives out from all this baseball pressure. And if that's not enticing enough, you can also bring the team over to the exhibition match or the season mode, as well as the league mode. This one has the heaviest emphasis on multiplayer, as you and up to 6 players can choose 6 teams in a league, duke it out with each other in a bunch of matches like a condensed season mode, and whoever ends up at the top of the standings after the allotted games is the winner, and then you can even send them off into the playoffs. But I didn't get that far, and I don't have much more to say about it. It's a hell of an icebreaker though, I'll give it that. Then there's the home run mode. Pick a player, get 10 very soft pitches thrown at you, knock out as many out of the park as you can, and check out your stats afterwards. That's pretty much it. Try getting a streak or a high score, bada boom. At least you don't have to play through it 5 times to complete a run like Big Hurt made you do. But it does remind me way too much of that game's home run mode in general, so there's not much more here. And the last thing to mention is the stuff that you're accumulating while going through all of these modes, the Power Pro points, which are used to purchase items in the Power Pro shop. What items, you may ask? Well, batting forms for your Success Mode character, pitching forms for your Success Mode character, uniform variations, other things, but primarily baseball cards with a picture of the real-life player and all their stats and everything on it. And all this does is just make me wonder if they supplanted this into the free mobile version of the game that they have released since. Oh boy, can't wait to spend $5 getting 100 pulls in order to get Shohei Ohtani. So as a whole, MLB Power Pros is pretty great. It's got a ton of fun mechanics to tickle your baseball fancy, and a ton of fun modes to keep sinking your teeth into if the regular baseball fancy gets stale. This would be the part where I would emphasize how this is all very true, in spite of its look. But come on, it just feels silly to praise the game in spite of how it looks. Because that's how the game looks. I mean, wouldn't it be embarrassing if a bunch of these contemporary reviews for the game went something along those lines?
Like, don't let the weird Japanesey look fool you, bro. This baseball game is real deep. Really deep.
Ugh. At least the reception overall was positive, but I'll say it again, the backhandedness doth protest too much, methinks. They also found the commentary annoying, so we're on the same page there. It was kind of weird seeing the averages between the Wii and PS2 versions not be closer, since they're almost the exact same games, besides a certain mode in the Wii version. I didn't play the PS2 version to confirm that, but going by other folks' gameplay, I don't know, do you see anything different? There were some funny outliers with these reviews, though, like Nintendo Power going against the grain, with the writer calling the baseball gameplay too shallow and the controls too lackluster, before giving it one of the lowest scores out of all the reviews, tied with Digital Entertainment News' review of the PS2 version, whose writer believed the game wasn't tuned for the casual audience it was aiming to attract. Okay, agree to disagree, but the funniest criticism of all came from OneUp.com, where the writer gave it a glowing review, but complained that the Wii version did not have enough Wii-ness to it. Like, they wanted the motion controls to be used for more modes, and not just the exclusive Wiimote one. Oh, by the way, there's an exclusive Wii Remote mode. Similar to the multitude of titles released during the first year of the platform's existence, the Wii version of Power Pros has an exclusive Wii Remote mode that was built to show off the capabilities of the Wii Remote. At least, that's what it implies. You're relegated to playing either an exhibition game or the home run mode, and as for how it plays, well, have any of y'all played Wii Sports Baseball? Where you swing the bat while on offense and then pitch the ball on defense, and you have no influence on fielding or base running? Yeah, it's pretty much the same here. It's kind of like the success mode gameplay as well, just with motion controls, except the bat is not one-to-one with the Wii Remote as it kind of was in Wii Baseball, so it's not nearly as immersive, so it's already one strike against it. Yeah, sure, it accounts for motion during your swing, obviously, and supposedly you can shake the Wii Remote after a hit to influence the base runners or the players fielding the ball, but even way back when, and playing this mode as a kid, I never noticed any difference between waggling the Wii Remote in this manner and sitting pretty while the AI fucks up the fielding again.
Actually, there is a subtle change when you're doing that, similar to how you can mash the shoulder buttons during base running in any other mode outside of this one.
Oh, is that how it worked? Huh, no kidding. The best aspect of this mode, like within Wii Baseball, was being able to use your Miis as the players. Except here, they're all assigned wildly random stats that are so overpowered it would make all of the MLB players cry the hardest they ever had. Maybe we could have used them during the MLB All-Star game. Overall, it's fine, but compared to everything else in the game, this mode is the pure definition of tacked on. So the idea of this being the main control method for all of the other ones? That's insane. I'd like to know how the reviewer would feel about the game then as they get their dislocated shoulder put back in place. In fact, I'm curious about how they feel about Mario Super Sluggers when it did this exact thing and the game suffered for it as a result. Thankfully, I don't think this mode's inclusion, or that reviewers lament, affected overall sales of the game. I just wish I had solid numbers to definitively prove it, but sadly, as is the case with titles of this sort with a smaller release, those were hard to come by. VG Charts says around 400,000 copies were shipped and sold overall between both versions, but I take their numbers with a grain of salt, and I couldn't find any mention of them in Take-Two's quarterly reports. Based on that, it's likely to say it wasn't doing NBA 2K numbers, despite only being $40 for the Wii version and $20 for the PS2 version. That is a fucking steal even back in the day, and you can find it for reasonable prices these days too. So now that I've had my nostalgia fix and provided yet another hour of watch time to the watch time bank, I would say it's time to start wrapping things up. I would say that, but 2K weren't finished with the Power Pros experiment just yet. The next MLB Power Pros entry was announced for Wii and PS2 once again in the spring of 2008 and was set for release in the States 2 months afterwards, with Japan getting it another 2 months afterwards. If at first you may or may not have succeeded, try again earlier in the baseball season with a focus on the US market. For the record, I've never played any other entries in the MLB Power Pros series beyond MLB Power Pros. It was all I really could ever need in a baseball game as a youngin', and there didn't appear to be too many differences between this one and the one I had, so I never bothered to check. Well, now I want to bother, and after months of searching all around my local game stores to no avail, I snagged a copy at my favorite games convention in the world. And this is not the original case it came in either.
Why did you try to get it online, you dunce?
I'm old and stodgy, and as long as the disc still works, that's all that matters. Time to satisfy that curiosity and see what's changed during the 10-month gap. Oh no, not again! Right off the ball, they've updated the rosters. Okay, be weird if they hadn't. I see they have also adjusted the presentation to fit the entire screen, so you can still kind of see some stretching going on here with the text, so it's not true widescreen, but the Wii never had that to begin with, so whatever. I don't have to put a background on the timeline again, so I'm all for it. There were some other presentational upgrades too, like the strike zone showing where the most common pitches land for each batter, and an effect playing out in some of the stadiums whenever you hit a home run. The Great American Ballpark emits steam from the smokestacks, the Big Apple rises up at Citi Field. I was hoping Bernie Brewer would make an appearance as well, but I guess they didn't want to animate the guys sliding down into a mug of beer. Cowards, you let a cuss word slip by in the last game, why couldn't you just have done it here? But those are just aesthetics. What about the gameplay? Not much has really changed here either. You can match the shoulder buttons to speed up the runners. Oh wait, that was also in the first game. Sorry, I never used that function, so this is all very new to me. In all seriousness, there are some new difficulty options and balance adjustments made for those options for anyone wanting an extra or easier challenge, and the bullpen option here, which allowed you to switch out pitchers in the last game, now features an actual bullpen. And you can place pitchers in here to warm them up if you need to relieve the current pitcher on the mound at some point. It's a pretty neat feature, but Frank Hurt had this like 13 years ago. Why wasn't this available in the first game? I wonder if they took inspiration from that game too. Frankly, I wasn't able to gauge any other significant changes in the gameplay beyond all this stuff. It's generally the same dealio, and that's generally a good thing because that means it's still generally good. So let's not waste any more time here. In fact, let's just go to the other modes here that have not changed much or at all and just get them out of the way. The season mode has an even cuter looking assistant, some adjusted menu navigation, and roster updates, but it's the same old complicated baseball season stuff from before, so I did not feel the need to speedrun another crappy red season. League mode is the same multiplayer focus, up to 6 teams fight, song and dance, but in getting footage for that, I accidentally discovered that you're not limited to having all those teams be completely different. My god, it's like we've made our own multiverse. The arrange mode also features the same take a team, mix and match the players, numbers, names, voices, stuff from before. The practice mode lets you practice your baseball practice skills to practice all over the practice, and the shop has even more baseball cards up the wazoo. From what I can tell, the success mode is one of the areas that does have more than a few changes from game to game in the Power Pros series, and that is very much the case in Power Pros 2008. The mode still contains the same stat building, sim farming, relationship building focus carryover from the previous version, but the first difference is clear right from the get-go. Instead of going through 3 years of college to get to the major leagues, our player-created character is already in the minor leagues and has to go through 2 years of that, with the main goal still being to get into the majors. So, not super different, but hey, this is continuing from right where we left off last time. Means we can carry our character over too, right? Well, no. It does feature the return of folks like Marvin and Rudy, but these guys are totally different from the Marvin and Rudy we interacted with in the last game. Like, Rudy is no longer your childhood friend's dad and the scouting guy, he's now just the scouting guy. And Marvin, well, he's pretty much the same, but he's a lot weirder now. But at least our custom created character has a bit more character to them. They seem less competent in themselves despite their skills, which probably has something to do with them now having no dad whatsoever instead of a lazy one. The childhood friend and the rival molds have returned too, and I don't like their designs nearly as much, but they're a more integral part of the story as they had all grown up with each other, information provided in the several flashbacks that occur in the story as you progress, so it balances out there. I guess you could say I am intrigued with where this is going. As for the gameplay, our fella's still going through the same baseball life on a week-by-week basis with the same vitality meter and all that, but now you have the ability to do multiple things per day with this energy meter that's tucked away somewhere deep in the menus. Thanks. The game will at least tell you how many things you can do per day on the menu here, so again, it balances out. Another change that likely came as a result of this mode centering around the minor league experience is a larger number of baseball games that our character can participate in. You'll still either just be pitching or batting, with everything else being controlled by the AI, but now you're playing in regular season games in addition to tournament games, so considering how long it took to get to that stuff before, this can only be a net positive for those wanting to get into it quicker. Perhaps the biggest change of all, though, comes with the random events and the decision-making that were such a big part of those events. The fake cards are no more. All of the decisions you'll be making are now completely up to you, the player. But this doesn't mean the cards have been entirely removed. They've now been inserted into the reworked practice mode as a visual indicator for how well the practice went. This not only affects the likelihood of injury, but affects how much XP the character will receive. I kind of preferred how straightforward this was in the first game's mode, so I didn't care for that change, but at least the rest option is still here, so... Where the rest option? Okay, it seems that you can now only restore stamina through items purchased at the shop, or by getting hot dogs at the hot dog shop, or through random events. Something is very off here. But despite that, things seem to be going well for my guy. They got a decent number of hits in the game that they played, they impressed the scout with their skills, and our team won the championship against the childhood rivals team, thus capturing the heart of the childhood friend forever, and the goofy-looking manager rewarded them and Marvin by firing their asses. Wait, what? But we won! He helped the team win. I helped the team win! Why are you firing me? Is it because I called you goofy? Look in the mirror, asshole! In my bewilderment, I did another research thing and learned what was actually the most significant and stingiest change to this mode. If you don't get your character's approval level for the manager up to a certain point during the postseason, regardless of how well the character performed, you get a game over. I guess now that we're a professional player, we shouldn't be having too much fun fucking around the game's world, so fine. Let's just see if we can salvage this by reloading my most recent save point and making my guy do nothing but practice, practice, practice. And nope, we still got fired. In my increasingly frustrated bewilderment, I looked up a guide to figure out how I can get my fella up to that level when the deadline arrives, and this one game facts thread pretty much said I screwed myself over by not practicing every single day from the start. Don't go anywhere besides the gym, don't go get a part-time job because you get money at the start of each month anyway, and don't go after any of those fine ladies until you can make it past the deadline. Oh, okay. So, don't have any fun. Can you tell I was not pleased with having to start over from scratch? A weird design quirk I learned through this irritation was that so long as the stamina tank ain't empty, you can still have your guy practice with a relatively low chance of getting injured. And that means buying up a bunch of candy and eating one before hitting the gym. Oh wow, is that how this worked this whole time? I've been doing my routine all wrong. But the writer added, in addition to not doing anything except practicing, only do a practice if the coach icon is above said practice, so you can get bonus points towards the XP amount that you would normally get from the practice, and more points towards the manager and coach levels, and the only other thing to buy from the shop are those gambling tickets, yeah they're back, that'll give you a good chance to get even more points for your skills. Oh, and don't forget to save before going into practice in case an injury does happen, cause it will happen, and it will absolutely fuck up your progress even if you have the patented anti-injury necklace lowering those odds, barely, which means exiting the mode entirely and going right back into it because that's how the save system still works here for some stupid fucking reason. Yes, I know there's only one save file, but they could have cut down on the tedium by not forcing me to do that shit because guess how many fucking times I got injured with this thanks to this stupid strategy! So, Cock here did get approved by that manager after all that hard work. Even got a walk-off homer for good measure. Swear to Christ, if that shit backfired me again, I would have taken a bat to his goofy-ass hair. And it only took an hour and a half and an endless amount of reloading to get past it. So now that Cock was in the AAA, I could relax just a little bit and start doing stuff outside of practice again. If only I was interested in doing that anymore. This little shift in priorities seems to actively discourage the free time stuff entirely, and it consequently throws off any attempts at the kind of balanced approach that I went with last time and had worked so well. Yeah, priorities in life change past college, but not every baseball player needs to go this extra mile to please their greedy manager. I was not having any more fun past this point, and that was already fluctuating even before I had to change up the approach. I didn't find the new characters all that interesting, or their stories all that interesting, or the new map interface all that interesting. Yes, there are still weird elements to the side stories, thanks to some of the jobs that the guy dissuades you from pursuing, like working at the steak restaurant, or working for a PI, finding missing dogs and the like. But after all the shit I had to put up with, I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care about the new girls either. None of them come close to Sarah. Why didn't you just do Sarah again? And all that's left beyond that is the main story, and that at least went in some neat directions. Following my player's acceptance into AAA hell, it's revealed that their dad isn't actually dead, but the manager for another rival team whose owner makes dumb blonde McGoofyface look like Gandhi by comparison. He will cut players with even the slightest of injuries. Okay, hernias aren't slight injuries, but you get what I mean. He don't waste no time on the weak. There's also another rival player on that team who I guess is the Alvin for this mode, as he's the best of the best and he spends all his time just trying to goad Cock into joining that rival team. I mean, yeah, that walk-off home run was pretty sick, but that feels like eons ago, man. Let's not cling to past legacies. Before long, the two teams faced off against each other. Cock lost by a pube, their rival abandons them, their father disowns them, and after all that drama, they somehow landed a major league contract. Probably all thanks to that sick walk-off. Unfortunately, this meant I couldn't reload a save to try the match again, and yeah, I probably could have just reset the game in order to prevent that from happening, but I just wanted to be done with the mode. Like, I did look up what happens if you actually do win the match and kept the story going, and it does get better and better with the twists that they pull, so I won't spoil the details. The weirder plot points do a lot to make up for the dullness of its characters, and that just makes the annoying tweaks in progression so disappointing. I was content to leave my thoughts on this as such and go on with my life, i.e. go on to the next parts of the game, but I had a niggling feeling that there had to be an easier strategy here than what this jackass was providing, a feeling that persisted well into the making of this video. So, before passing final judgment, I decided to give Success Mode 08 one more shot. This time using the patented shortcut method so at least I could get it done quicker. Based on other forum suggestions, my new approach involved acquiring the Princess Necklace and using a bunch of shiny fragrances to get more scout and manager points while recovering my guy's vitality by going out and eating Chinese food, because that too is cheaper than buying the power special things in the shop. True to life, I suppose. In addition to only practicing whenever the coach icon is there too, I also needed to get at least 2 hits per game to keep that level stable. So how did this go? Well, the first game didn't go swimmingly, but that's okay. I just try again with the next game. Okay, that didn't go very well either. Let's just reboot and try again. Okay, let's use the gambler's ticket here, kind of increase your skills a little bit, and then we can try the game again. I want to impress my childhood friend after all. Nope, we're back into the cycle, fellas. I can't fucking do this. This structure is making me too paranoid about not getting my stats up to the max for me to have any fun.
That wasn't an issue with the last success mode. All I'm saying.
If you did like the previous mode's success mode, there is a lot more here to offer as well. Just know it's not going to be nearly as easy, and not nearly as fun. Oh yeah, and there's a cute doctor lady here that you meet when you get injured. Why can't I romance her? We're old enough, I think. Again, cowards. And now we're left with the single newest addition to Power Pros 2008, MLB Life. Although, it's not entirely new to the Power Pros series, as this has been around in some form as the My Life mode since Power Pro 10 just 5 years earlier. Anyway, MLB Life has you take either a pre-established character, a character that went through success mode torture, or a brand new character to your liking, and have them sign a contract with that player's preferred team, after which you help them navigate through the journey of their MLB life. This involves playing in a bunch of MLB games, or AAA games if the character sucks ass, and doing other life things outside of MLB over the course of some amount of years, all while maintaining their vitality and fatigue, yep, you do that here too, until they retire or break every single bone in their body. It's like they took the gameplay of the success mode and placed it in the structure of the season mode. I'm sure that will be very enthralling for Cock to go through. This guy's probably 2 groundouts away from a midlife crisis. After getting through all the tutorial stuff, it does settle into a nice groove and appears to be more forgiving with screw-ups. But I don't know, after the success mode debacle, I didn't have much hope for this. Maybe just do a month or 2 of a season, maybe buy a car, maybe even get laid. See if anything interesting happens beyond that. I'm not expecting that. Yeah, this is easily the best part of the game. Chalk it up to those lowered expectations all you want, but it's got everything that made the previous game's success mode so addictive, especially since it included a proper rest function to restore that vitality, and that groove does not see any hiccups, which makes it incredibly easy to lose track of time. Like one more hit, I'm gonna get another home run, I'm gonna get another RBI, I might even hit for the cycle this time. If I don't, there's always next time, and if I do, great, I get to do it again. It's like a fuck ton of concentrated dopamine rushes. It is unhealthy. There may not be any kind of story to experience here, and the characters are even simpler, but I love all of the little hobbies and the activities you can get your player into, and having these companions around to do stuff with them helps break up the baseball gameplay. At the time of writing, I've played through a full season with Cock, and well, his numbers weren't super impressive. He did get the highest hit streak for the season, and even helped the Reds get into the playoffs, where they were probably squandered, but at least he can cry on the shoulders of his doctor girlfriend. That's right, the baby. Fuck you, success mode. At the time of recording audio, he did end up hitting that cycle, and even got to sign a bunch of autographs for his newest fans. And when the video gets posted, he'll probably have a luxury condo, marry the doctor, get a bunch of kids, and be dead. The only thing that bothered me is the motivation level. Something I didn't really pay much attention to in either the success mode or the season mode, but is a lot more noticeable here in that it goes up and down in a linear fashion rather than moving naturally based on the character's life circumstances and performance. Now, that's not to say it doesn't get affected by that stuff. That's how success mode managed it, at least. It just only makes it go up or down faster. In any case, if the first game's success mode was the biggest reason to give MLB Power Pros a try, MLB Life is the biggest reason to give MLB Power Pros 2008 its own due. Because taking everything into consideration, the overall game is not quite as good because of the worst success mode and the general lack of changes, but regardless of whichever one you go with, both titles are easily some of the best baseball games of their time. You cannot go wrong with Power Pros. I didn't think I was going to find any new insight with the contemporary reviews for this game, and upon first glance, the averages appear to be about the same. For the Wii version, and upon reading these reviews, if you thought some of the previous takes I highlighted were weird, Jesus Christ, these ones will knock your bat rings off. Most of the criticisms were pretty much the same that I had, although they weren't quite as harsh on the success mode, but that wider gap in the average between both versions is mystifying. I didn't play the PS2 version for this game either, but once again, I see no substantial differences between them besides the stupid motion control mode. And oddly enough, there are now more publications complaining about those not being the main control option. Okay, I understand. Hindsight bias is a thing. I know what I'm doing here. Hell, I was a motion control buff back in the day, up until Skyward Sword ruined that perception, but I'll repeat myself once again. Can you imagine going through a full season mode or a full season in MLB Life, both of which will take hundreds of hours to complete? Having to physically swing the remote every 30 seconds or so? It just doesn't make sense. Outside of that, we got the most negative review of the entire series thanks to Game Revolution, whose writer clearly doesn't understand what he's playing by frequently comparing it to Korean MMOs, although their experience with success mode was very similar to mine, so at least we're on the same page there. But oh boy, I saved the best for last, as Console Game World or File Factory Games, or whatever the hell this site's name was, provided not only the worst written review, but one of the worst fucking pieces of writing I've read in quite some time. The writer here also criticized the game for not having motion controls as its primary method, and appeared to be so peeved at this that they based 90% of the review around that criticism. They would then go on to say that the gameplay was too hard anyway, and summed up the title as a total failure, before giving it a 7 out of 10. What in the world was with these two games that got these folk acting so funky? As for the sales numbers, if we're gonna go by VG charts again, Power Pros 2008 sold a bit worse overall, and Take-Two did make a brief mention of it in their annual report, saying that it had helped contribute to the $38.7 million in revenue that they had made from their baseball games that year, so maybe it did okay by the standards that they set for it. Although it's interesting that the report stated that there were 2 versions of the game, because that's not exactly true.
Bro, what are you talking about? There was just only 2 versions of the game, weren't there?
Well, yes, 2 console versions, but there was a 3rd game, and we Americans had the pleasure of both getting this 3rd game and having it be exclusive to us. Oh yes indeedy, sonnies, there was a handheld version of MLB Power Pros. Guess Take-Two or Konami were really hoping the series would be a hit overseas, so why not put out an obviously inferior handheld version that'll end up in bargain bins all over the world? Although somehow I managed to snag this one complete in box. Maybe the gamer gods liked my walk-off home run too. I am serious about this only being released in the States too. Japan never got a DS entry in the MLB Jikkyō Power Pro series. But don't get too excited. Remember, in the pantheon of great DS games, sports titles don't tend to be in those ranks, especially baseball ones. Especially 2K baseball ones. Zoinks! Then again, this is Power Pros, and there's already a 90% chance that it's better than most of the baseball games on the system, so with all that in mind, how was the game? Or actually first, you all must be wondering, how the heck am I going to record footage for this? Well, eons ago, I got my 3DS modded to do just that for the old LP channel. So even though the guy who did these services has been out of business for quite a while, and it's probably much easier to just get a ROM, I'ma give this a spin. Shout out to Katsu Kitty. Someone may have gotten ripped off by them or something like that. I don't know if there might be a controversy behind them, but not me. This thing's done me pretty well. So how does a handheld version of Power Pros play? Well, a lot like console Power Pros. It's almost like a melding of the earlier Power Pros presentation with the current MLB Power Pros gameplay, as you get to play as any of the MLB teams again, and all the players have all the same strengths and weaknesses from their console counterparts. The control layout is about the same, the pitching and batting and fielding mechanics are about the same too, and the presentation has a lot of the same Power Pro hallmarks. Yeah, it looks messier when you blow it up on whatever screen you're watching this on, but it looks perfectly fine on the platform it's intended to be played on. The super compressed audio was not great though. Ooh, dear my ears. Really, the only gameplay adjustment of note is with the sweet spot controls. It's a bit like the first Power Pro game, where you can just move it around wherever you want using the D-pad. You can also use the touchscreen to advance on-base runners, or get them to speed up their running, or you can still mash the shoulder buttons if you so choose. Good luck with doing that with the shoulder pads though. So yeah, we ended up getting yet another well-designed baseball game, and I think it easily surpasses the other baseball games on the DS. I'm just so happy it made the transition, and God, if I had this as a kid, I would have played the shit out of it. But I'm sure I can put another good chunk of my life into this game's success mode, so let's see what kind of fun shenanigans and... what? Where's the success mode? Actually, forget that, where's the season mode? None of that shit is in sight. Huh. Instead, besides your exhibition matches, all that we can do is... go through the practice mode again, which works the same as the other practice modes we've looked at. We can do the home run mode again, which is a lot like the other home run modes we've played. And there's a playoff mode that is a lot like how the playoffs worked in the previous games. Fret not though, the customization aspects are still here via the edit team mode. You just can't make up your own teams or your own players anymore. You can only use the existing teams and the existing players on those teams to make your very own special team. Yeah, this is bare bones, isn't it? And while this is exclusive to the US, the gameplay is actually taken from one of the then recent Pocket Kun spin-off games, specifically Power Pro Pocket Kun 10. And, as is the focus for that entire series, that has a success mode. So it's like they took the gameplay from it, stripped out all the fun bits, plastered the MLB branding onto it, and called it a day. How one comes to the conclusion that taking out the most significant aspect of a modern Power Pros game was a good idea is something that Inverse should have asked the translators. Maybe they didn't have time or the resources or the will to live, but whatever reasoning there could be for this, it's a giant mark against an otherwise solid handheld sports title. If you're really itching to play one of the best sports games on the DS, which is not saying much for a system that didn't even have a very good Mario sports game, give this a shot. For me, it was a fun time, but I will be sticking with the console variants. Despite the series not raking in all the dough in the world, 2K and Konami could have kept on trucking. But according to that translator, this, and a number of other factors and shakeups on Konami's end, resulted in these titles being the last console entries for Power Pros that we Westerners would see for a very long time. I wish there was a wilder explanation than that, but it's sadly the same fate a lot of popular series in other countries that are far more niche here face. I like to imagine though that this experiment had a hand in motivating 2K to push out casual spin-offs for their MLB 2K series. Although everyone else was doing that because the Wii was such a big milking machine, so I'm probably way off the mark by suggesting that without Power Pros, we wouldn't have Nicktoons MLB.
Actually, it's based off their big series, you fucking dumbass.
Take-Two would eventually let their third-party baseball agreement fall to the wayside, as well as the MLB 2K series itself, right as they entered the 8th generation of consoles. Meanwhile, Japan would continue seeing many further entries in all 3 Power Pro franchises, including one more Major League game in the following year, and a non-Power Pros related baseball game from the same Power Pro Productions team that features characters from Weekly Shonen Sunday and Weekly Shonen Magazine manga series. Yes, this is real. Following that, the main series made the jump into HD, and MLB Power Pros soon became nothing more than a distant memory. Is how the narrative is supposed to go, but Konami had other ideas. They would take the reins of the next Power Pros game to be released in the West by releasing a brand new entry exactly 1 year after 2008. And that game was called Power Pros Touch for iOS. I didn't know this was a thing until I looked super deep into this franchise, and honestly, I'm not sure how many people knew at the time either. Oh, don't get me wrong, I would love to give this delisted iOS game a shot, but after all that we've been through, I'm just gonna take a little break here and go buy secondhand footage. Looking at said footage, by golly, this sure looks like a simplified version of Power Pros. And now the hitting and pitching and fielding mechanics are all touch-based. It appears to work fine enough, but the problem is there's only 6 teams to choose from here, none of whom are based on MLB teams, and outside of the regular exhibition mode, there's only a season mode where, yes, you can play 162 games of this, but that's it. At least it was only $4, so maybe the idea was to play a game every day on your way to your dead-end job, preferably while someone else is driving. But if you're still itching for more Power Pros, perhaps an actual MLB Power Pros entry would be more to your liking. Yes, Konami would officially release a brand new MLB Power Pros game a year after Power Pros Touch, dubbing it MLB Power Pros 2010 for iOS. And it was also available for only 10 fucking days. Unsurprisingly, there's even less footage available for this one, but from what I gathered, it looks like the exact same game as Power Pros Touch, just with the MLB teams added back in. You could also customize the teams to your own liking, a la the DS game, and use Bluetooth technology to invade another person's iPhone and challenge them wirelessly. Not a bad package for $4, but 10 days! I'm sorry for not noticing that you had no faith in this series' performance in the West, Konami. I was probably just too busy at the time solving murder mysteries in my Doctor game. Maybe you should have had a success mode that lets you do something like that. I probably would have shit my pants over it. Thankfully, Konami finally got their heads out of their asses for the next entry in the MLB Power Pros series by teaming up with Take-Two again. And with their powers combined once more, the dynamic baseball dynamite duo brought to us MLB Bobblehead Pros for 360 and PS3. It's just fucking Power Pros, but with these disgusting bobblehead designs. In an alternate universe where Take-Two were responsible for localizing the games, this is what Power Pros could have ended up as. To be fair, it doesn't look that bad, because it's still just Power Pros, so maybe it was alright. If only they hadn't made it a download-only release here and delisted it at some point on both marketplaces, forcing anyone who was interested to import a Japanese-only copy and a console that could play it, or suck a baseball. When will this series stop fucking teasing me? You know what? Forget it. I need to take a 12-year nap. Good night. Hey guys, I just woke up. What's going on? Holy fuck! Back in February 2023, Nintendo held yet another one of their many famed Nintendo Directs. And in my opinion, this was one of the best ones they'd ever had. I thought shitting my pants from the announcement of a new Strikers game in the previous year's Direct was the most amped that I could ever get. And here, I shat my entire office chair thanks to the likes of Metroid Prime Remastered and the Etrian Odyssey HD Trilogy Extravaganza. It was that good. God, if they announced a Trauma Center re-release, I would have just died right then and there. And happily so. But instead I settled for shitting my entire office room at the brief mention of a new Power Pros game. And I mean brief. For the cool people in the know about the series, though, this new version was not just for the cool Switch players, but the even cooler PS4 doers. And by going to either online store page on the respective storefronts, we're greeted with a 99-cent price tag. We are eating good, as the hype people say. There's just one tiny problem to the whole affair. That don't spell MLB. WBSC Baseball Power Pros is sponsored by the WBSC, which stands for the World Baseball Softball Confederation. What that means is they handle the world side of baseball games, like in the Olympics or the World Baseball Classic, or even esports, and they've also created their own variant of baseball called Baseball 5?
there's one team statistic that we're keeping as this ball goes past first base, and look at Japan with runners on the corners and a chance for a lead in the first. You look at runs scored, you look at runs allowed, and you look
This looks kind of fun.
differential in the
Basically, this is not an MLB Power Pros game per se, but hey, more Power Pros is always welcome, and this motherfucker is the motherfucker of all steals. So I, and likely everyone else, use our hard-earned gold points to acquire the title, and with expectations now in check for a $1 game, let's see what this new Power Pros title has to offer. First order of business, practice, practice, practice. Well, not much has changed here. It's the same old pitching and hitting with the dead zone sweet spot stuff and very similar physics accompanying the ball. It does feel a little bit lighter than before and certainly more refined. Expected for something in the HD generation and after 30 fucking years, so that's nice. Fielding, though, is a totally different story. The controls and mechanics still haven't really changed that much, but now there's a greater weight to the character's movement, and it seems like they're trying to add a bit more realism to the animations. Oh, don't take that negatively, it's not detrimental or anything like that, it's just a new wrinkle to get used to. Although placed alongside the other animations that have not changed at all in the last 15 years, it kinda sticks out like a thumb hit with a massive hammer. Going off of footage from past games again, this has been the new standard since Konami started slowing down the series releases to bi-yearly as soon as it arrived to PS4. Coincidence? I don't know. But I do know that if you forego MLB Bobblehead Pros, this is the first HD title in the series available to folks outside of Japan. In fact, this is the first Power Pros game that's available for anyone. And I don't think it looks very good. Yeah, the character models and their endearing movements and reactions have not changed in any way whatsoever. They still look as fun as they always have, and the resolution itself is fine, but the stadiums, the textures, the shadows, the lighting, oh my god, what is happening here? It doesn't blend together all that well. I might have made the mistake of playing the Switch version, that's obviously going to suffer when you compare it to its PS4 counterpart, but in my defense, and I know Power Pros has never looked outstanding at all. It's just, if we were to compare this to the first HD game in the series that somehow looks better composed and more colorful, I can't help but feel that something has gone wrong here. At least the frame rate is smooth, so yeah, just forget everything I said. There's a more pressing matter at hand. It's likely safe to say that the MLB branding has been put to rest for this series forever. MLB The Show has now engulfed that market, so that begs the question, who exactly are we playing as now? Well, upon booting up the game, and after accepting the extensive terms of use, whose rules of conduct state that we must agree to not use the game as a means to exploit children for pornography, encourage suicide or drug use, or seek out hot singles in our area, I know this is probably standard for many terms of use agreements, but it was a trip to read through nonetheless, you get to set up your custom character icon and choose a country for your team to represent, before it gets filled up with a bunch of Power Pros characters who I assume are/were in previous Power Pro games, or success modes, or MLB Lives, or crazy Konami racers. I think that this was intended to be one of those kind of dealios, but we didn't get any of those games. So my excitement was just limited to, holy fuck, Alvin and Marvin are back, woo! It's a shame because based on this roster, it looks like they started including a lot of wackier characters into their success modes, and even female characters. Oh, pardon me, they started introducing female characters 7 years before MLB Power Pros. These girls here appear to be some of the most iconic characters in the series, and the only wiki character pages that they can get in Westworld are for fucking battle cats. It's insane how little of a shit some people seem to give about one of the best-selling baseball series of all time. Sorry, let's continue. What would have helped is having a new success mode or season mode with these characters for us to get acquainted with them, but that ain't here. Given the price they're selling it for, I expected that, But, well, now that we're talking about the modes again, let's just rush through the ones we've already gone over in the other games. We got the exhibition, we got the league and the tournament, we got the arrange, or edit team, or Canadian Wonderland mode. So what could we argue is the newest and biggest feature as far as worldwide Power Pros goes? Online play. In the championship mode, you get to take the gifted baseball team of your creation and squad them up against other baseball teams around the world in a bid to gain enough CP to increase your power rank and be the envy of all your Power Pro peers. CP standing for championship points, and not the other thing referenced in the terms of use. Funnily enough, this mode reminded me of the Battle League mode from the Strikers game that y'all forgot existed, as the tournaments only run during certain parts of the week with tiny little breaks in between. Except here, there's an actual cap to the players on your team. They each have a set cost attached to them depending on their stats that will add to the team cost total, and that determines which tournaments your chosen team will be able to participate in. I suppose that's as good a way to balance the matches as any, so let's hop into one and see how things go. Okay, this is a 1-inning baseball match. It's got a 2 extra inning extension. It's got fair weather, tie break is in play, meaning 2 players are already on the base. No mercy rule, 55 team cost, fielders misspelled here for some reason, how dare you? I think I can handle that. Oh, neat, I'm playing against the team that's representing the American Samoa using Japanese characters. This should be interesting. Not sure if you saw that, but that didn't look like 124 kilometers per hour to me. Oh well, I smacked a walk-off grand slam. I'm pretty satisfied with that. Let's try out some other matches. Man, this netcode is not very good, huh? Like, I'm not expecting rollback in my Power Pros, but consistently unstable connections aren't exactly the kind of thing that's gonna keep me playing an online-focused mode. And having the fielding once again being handled automatically says to me, yeah, we ain't fixing that. If you win a match or at least perform decently, you get little rewards like customization options for your avatar or different batting forms. And this made me a little skeptical as to whether or not there were other means of acquiring these items, which is a warranted expectation for a 99-cent game. But surprisingly, this 99-cent game does not include a bounty of items to purchase via microtransactions. I wonder if the WBSC's involvement kept that from happening. Soon after, the losses started stacking up, and I quickly realized that I was not as interested in keeping up with the championship mode as I was with continuing MLB life. And that's it for eBaseball Power Pros. It's not the best of the bunch that we've looked at. The original game surpassed it by far. But you absolutely cannot go wrong with a 99-cent baseball game whose gameplay is on par with its competitor on PS4 and surpasses the shit-tastic version of that on Switch. If y'all love baseball and you have either of these systems, it's a no-brainer to try this out. Just like the pitch that these guys throw, because obviously, how the fuck do they keep me from hitting it?
Bro, that's not the name of the pitch. That's just a phrase that comes from a 50s comic where they imply a kid and their father habitually drink gin for some reason.
Actually, gin is a card game based on rummy.
You're a card game based on rummy.
No, you're an alcoholic.
How the fuck did you two get here? There's always a bittersweet feeling when discussing your favorite niche games. It's fun to take the opportunity to share something you love and show off what makes that thing so special to you, as well as having the chance to expose it to people who either weren't aware of them or even sharing that love. Like, I made the Trauma Team and Mario Strikers videos with this explicit purpose, and in the case of the former, with the added hope that it can get properly acknowledged by its creators again. But that hope can only go so far. MLB Power Pros is another one of those powerful forces from my gaming youth, and even after giving it the critical treatment, not only did this deep dive provide me with newfound appreciation for the series at large, I honestly think it's one of the most innovative sports series of all time, and it's a damn shame that Konami didn't continue the momentum they had with its presence in the US. They made an impact with it here beyond this stupid Ohioan's adolescence. Now, I don't think the series inspired another simulation league or anything of the sort, but there is a dedicated forum page and a dedicated wiki, a non-fandom wiki to be clear. If those assholes try snapping it up, I'm gonna hurt them. with tons and tons of pages about these games and all the ones that weren't brought over, including a shit ton of success mode character passwords that you can bring over to their respective version. I don't even think I mentioned that. And someone even made great strides in translating the dialogue from the 2022 version success mode. Giving that a look, it appears to be a lot like the one from MLB Power Pros, but it's got little improvements in the presentation and actual voice clips. Man, giving this a wider release would add so much spice to baseball games now that RBI baseball's been retired.
As an addendum to it, turns out the guy is a professional esports player who participated in the Esports Olympics week from last year, which is an official Olympics competition, but a test run for a wider Esports Olympics event that is going to be occurring next year. And now I'm starting to think that this game was only created in tandem with the WBSC for this. Not that it really matters, but just another interesting wrinkle I found as I was finishing this video. Like, I don't know how well this particular entry did by Konami standards. I'm gonna assume not great, since they didn't bring over the latest entry. So, if we never get another Power Pros title on par with the MLB Power Pros, it would suck, but I've been content with that being the case for more than half my life anyway, so it wouldn't make much of a difference. And why should current Konami waste their resources on worthless shit like that when they're focusing on more important franchises? Yeah. If you made it through yet another one of these lengthy gaming videos of mine and think these games look cool, please check out the most recent one. It's only $1 and it's a very good sports game. You'd do well to seek out the other games in this series. And with that, I think it's finally time to leave sports games from my youth behind. I believe we've covered them all, and I want to focus on more important matters on my end.
I like him younger. As young as possible.
Yeah. See y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.